It's more breakfasty time if you're out west, but it's great to see you again. I've been away for a week. Some of it was a little bit of time off, but I also did some work, if what I do could be called work. It doesn't feel like work quite often. We had a little bit of excitement. I think David and Sheila talked about it when I had a book launch out there in Sherwood Park, which is just outside of Edmonton. And we had a sold-out room, 144 folks, which is the most that the facility could hold in keeping with the COVID-19 limits, social distancing and whatnot. But a little bit of excitement was the Chinese consulate in Calgary had whipped up a crowd against my book, China Virus. Obviously, the China virus is explained in the subtitle of the book, how Justin Trudeau's pro-communist ideology is putting Canadians in danger. But the Chinese government is extremely sensitive to it being called the China virus. I can imagine the Soviet Union was extremely sensitive about the Chernobyl nuclear disaster being called Chernobyl, which is where it came from. But that's a fact. And so, holy macaroni, have they been hostile to the book. Do you guys have the vid with the dramatic music? I'm not sure who put that together, if that was you, Efron, or I went outside because I thought, you know what? I'm as pro-Chinese as they come. We sent Kian Bexte and Avi Yamini to Hong Kong last year to be part of the Hong Kong democracy protest coverage. I've personally been to both China and Taiwan and Hong Kong, and we have Chinese people on the show all the time talking about freedom for China. In my mind, it's the same as if you actually loved Russians and Ukrainians and every other person who was in the Soviet Union. If you loved the people, you would have been against the authoritarian dictatorship. Same thing with China. But you cannot criticize the dictatorship of China without being called racist. I'm not sure if they learned that move on their own or if they're copying Justin Trudeau. Anyways, we had a full house inside. There was a crowd outside whipped up by the Chinese consulate. I went out there for a minute to talk to them to see, have you guys read the book? Would you like a copy of the book? And it was really, anyhow, let me play for you a little vid. And I'm not sure if you saw this the other day, but Efron put this together. Why don't you play from the beginning? And I love that music. So crank it up, Efron.
Over the last few days, members who were sent here by the Chinese Communist Party and the embassy have threatened the shopkeeper here. Luckily, the shopkeeper did not give in. They tried to bribe the owner to cancel the event. Luckily, they did not. So I'm pleased to say that unlike in Beijing, free speech rules here. So I'm going to go in and talk to our guests, but these are people who would bring Chinese-style censorship to Canada. What I've tried to tell them, even though they swore at me and put their finger really close to my face, is that the Chinese virus I'm talking about in the book is the Communist Party of China. It's not Chinese people or history or culture or language or art or architecture. It's the Communist Party of China. When I asked them questions about their own allegiance to the Chinese Communist Party, they lost face. They started swearing and putting their finger right in my face to try and provoke me. But they're the ones who have lost face. Guys, the Communist Party is losing. They're losing in China and they're losing here. All right, I'm going to go in to be with the paying guests.
I want to give special thanks to Buffet Royale, the restaurant. I have no idea of the politics of the proprietors of the establishment. All I know, they may be conservatives or liberals or NDP. I don't know, block, whatever. But they believe anyone who wants a meal can have a meal. And that's my kind of restaurant. And they stood up to some pressure. So if you're with me, you're grateful for this because in these insane times, to be normal is a tremendous act of courage. So if you're from the Edmonton area, may I invite you to show your loyalty in return by patronizing not only this establishment in Sherwood Park, but the 3 other family-owned outlets around Edmonton. And by the way, I had lunch here and it's amazing. It's great to see people again. It's great to go out for a meal again. It's great to shake hands again. And for the other person who wants to do the elbow bump, I'll do that too. It's great just to be human again. And as you know, at Rebel News, we love to do events. And I think last year we had 14, 20 events, and then the pandemic stopped it all. So this is the first return to normal for us. And I'm just so glad to see you all. And we've got a lot of...
I've got a new book about... You know, I was when I was there, I was thinking of that song. I don't know if you ever watched the Disney cartoon Beauty and the Beast, when all the courtiers that were turned into furniture, the candelabra, the chest of drawers, one of their beautiful songs, catchy songs, was "To Be Human Again, Only Human Again." And I couldn't get that out of my head because I was here in Toronto for 4 months and living like a prisoner, as everyone else is. And then you go out to Alberta, where restaurants are open. They're still only allowed to have half capacity, but still it felt normal. And not everyone's wearing a mask, and the scolding culture isn't there. I went to a water park, and it was crowded with kids having fun. And I just thought, to be human again, only human again. And it just, just to walk up to someone and give them a handshake, and without being terrified of them or terrified of yourself, you don't know what you miss. And I say, and I've said this many times, it's like when I would visit my friend Tommy Robinson in prison. And it gets to you psychologically, and you start to love your jail cell. And he would say that he was in solitary and he would dread visits, even with his family. That's crazy, right? Well, no, if you're in solitary, it's almost like a kind of Stockholm syndrome. You come to love your prison. Oh, I don't want to be freed from it. Yeah, there's me talking to Tommy when he got out. I think that was the first thing you could see how thin he was there. He lost 40 pounds. It drives you mad. It took him a month to get normal again. And I think that's what we're seeing in Canada now. So I just was so glad to feel human again. I promised Buffet Royale, that was the name of the restaurant, that I would write a restaurant review and send it to our people in Northern Alberta. And I will keep that promise. I just got distracted by other things. It was a great restaurant. And I really liked the food there. I was so busy talking and shaking hands. I got there early. I had lunch with Sheila, and we had a bit of a team there. Kian was there also. And you know what? This restaurant was under such pressure. I'm so happy that the staff were supportive too. In fact, some of the staff were fans. It was pretty fun. The staff literally came up to me and said, "Can you sign a book?" One staff member was very, very excited about it. I think she had several of my books already. Oh, those beef ribs were great. I had one of those beef ribs for dinner. So this was really weird. That sign there. Can you go back to that sign that said Jewish roaches? That was so weird. Yeah. The Chinese consulate thought, oh, I know, let's call Ezra a Jewish roach and compare that to my criticism of the Chinese Communist Party. It was so weird. It was fun to talk back to them and to have that. I mean, I thought that video that Ephron made was great, and it sounded very majestic with that video. I was talking to them in real time. They were shouting. Now, you can't really hear them because the mic was close to my mouth. They were shouting at me. They were swearing at me. That one guy, as you can see in the white shirt there, that guy there, he put his finger so close to my face, I sort of pretended I was going to bite it, and then he jumped out. Oh, look at the cops there. The cops came to check out my book. Now, they were smarter than to do anything about my book because it's still Canada, not Communist China. I think I told you in a live stream that I did from Alberta that in addition to threatening and saying mean things, and that guy there, someone, I think from the consulate or at the consulate's behest, called up this restaurant, and I'm not even making this up, offered them $3,000 cash, not even to have us. Which, I mean, that's pretty tempting, because $3,000 to not serve any food, well, you don't have to pay for the food, you don't have to pay for the staff. It's pretty tempting. But I'm really glad, I'm really proud of the restaurant that they didn't cave in. In fact, I think they were sort of excited by being part of a freedom moment. And I got to tell you, the family that runs the Buffet Royale, I think they have 4 outlets in northern Alberta, 1 in Sherwood Park and 3 in Edmonton. I have no idea what their political stripe is. I talked to the owner, the mom and dad who own the place, and we never talked politics. I'm guessing, since they're hardworking family business entrepreneurs, that they're right of center, but that's only a guess. I have no evidence of that. For all I know, they could be liberals or they could be New Democrats. As we discussed amongst us, if you're in the restaurant business, you feed people who are hungry. You don't give them a political test before you feed them if they're hungry. Anyone who's hungry is welcome to come eat in your restaurant. So, I mean, maybe I should have talked to them about their politics, but I didn't, because I didn't care. I just was very glad that they stood up to those bullies. All right, well, we've got a super chat from Koi. Welcome back, Ezra. Well, that's pretty friendly of you. Thank you for that. You know, everyone held the fort so well here while I was away. Everyone chipped in. I think Andrew did one day, and I think Kean did it, so everyone had hands on deck. And I should tell you, in the room here, there is a wig. And I didn't see that. I see the wig, and I just saw someone mention wig in the comments, so I'm guessing David wore a wig. That's the only explanation I can see for that. So I'll have to go back and watch that episode. Another super chat from Abu Baker Al Puff Daddy, $10. Awesome sequence, Ezra. Way to show those commies that you have no fear, and the buffet looks amazing. Well, you know, you can just take a look at me, and of course I'm not only built for buffets, but buffets built me. I mean, you don't get this kind of a unusual geometry just by nature. I mean, how much is nature, how much is nurture? Maybe she's born that way, maybe it's Maybelline. Maybe Ezra's born that way, or maybe it's buffets. It's a bit of both, nature and nurture. I think buffets are a bigger thing in Alberta. There's a great buffet here in Toronto called the Mandarin. But like I say, here in Ontario, they're all, I love that. Have you ever been to the Mandarin, Efron? Do you know that one, the Mandarin? It's great. And maybe that's just because, you know, obviously okay, I'll stop talking about restaurants, but I'm going to write a restaurant review for Buffet Royale and send it to all our people, because it was a great place, and I'm just so proud of them for standing up to the bullies. Lesbian Towel, $5. Why should conservatives care about the persecution of Uyghurs besides reasons like owning the libs or owning the CCP? Well, I appreciate that question very much. Thank you for that. I suppose if you believe that anyone on earth has a spark of God in them, has some their humanity, whatever their religion or ethnicity or race, that if a human, I mean, was it John Donne who said, "No man is an island"? Can you call up that poem by John Donne, D-O-N-N-E? I'll read a little bit. You know, it's just such a beautiful poem. Thank you. Can you pump it up so I can? Yeah, there you go. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as any manner of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. And this is the Old English version there. It's such a classic poem. It basically says, because you're part of humanity, that's why. Now, I believe that you care for yourself and your family and your friends and your community, and it's almost like rings on a bullseye, layers of an onion. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, you're going to care more about your blood, your kin, than a stranger on the other side of the world. Now, I myself actually have been to the Uyghur province of Xinjiang. I've been to cities like Urumqi and Tulufan. I've been there. And by the way, I'm very critical of radical Islam, and I have to say that I found the Islam practiced in Xinjiang very moderate, very friendly, and I think it's because it hadn't been radicalized by Saudi or Iranian money. I enjoyed my visit to the Muslim province of China. I mean, I enjoyed Shanghai, I enjoyed Beijing, I liked seeing the wall, there were many wonderful things. Hong Kong was an amazing city, still is. But I actually enjoyed my visit to the Muslim province of China the best. The reason we care about Uyghurs in concentration camps is because we care about justice and freedom for everyone. Maybe not as much as we would care about justice and freedom in our own house, our own street, our own town, but surely we care. And that's what's so odd to me, is, for example, Justin Trudeau, who never found an Islamic issue that he didn't take up. Why is he not taking up that of the Uyghurs? Credible reports say that 1 million or more, Uyghur is it's a strange word. Most people have Uyghur. What's that? One person the other day thought I was saying a different word, W-I-G-G-E-R, a terrible word. Uyghur, U-I-G-H-Y-U-R is one spelling. It's an ethnicity. Can you just Google Uyghurs and click image? Because it's a certain look. And one of the shocking things when you're in Xinjiang is how many blue eyes you see. And it's a different kind of Asiatic look. It's more sort of Central Asian. It can be beautiful. Yeah, that's the Uyghur look. Scroll down a little bit. Can you, yeah, it's a little bit of a different look. Can you quick click Uyghur model, M-O-D-E-L? There's some gorgeous, gorgeous people because they have that fascinating look to them. And blue eye, yeah, look at that lady on the left there. Look at these, that's the Uyghur look. It's Chinese, but also not, isn't it? And one of the things that Communist China is doing is they're trying to water down the number of ethnic Uyghurs in Xinjiang by bringing in en masse Han Chinese. It's like what the Russians did. They called it Russification. So they would bring in Russians to the non-Russian Soviet Socialist republics to try and water down the Latvians, the Lithuanians, the Estonians, whatever, Ukrainians. That's what China's doing in Tibet, in Xinjiang. So to answer your question, why should conservatives care about persecution of Uyghurs? Is because because of humanity, because they are people. And by the way, if you think that they are all terrorists or Islamists, I'm here to tell you they're not. I'm not saying none of them are. I know for a fact there are some Uyghurs who went, for example, to join ISIS. Yes, I acknowledge that. But what China is doing to the Uyghurs is similar to what China did to the Falun Gong and what China is doing to Chinese Christians. So it's all part of the same authoritarian, totalitarian, anti-freedom tyranny in China. So that's my long answer to your question. I appreciate the question. Abu Bakr Al Puff Daddy, $10. Keen and David are also great as a team on live chats, but it's frustrating to Sheila and her fans when she's frozen out of the live stream. Upgrade Gunny's internet. Well, you know what? Thank you for suggesting that. I'll talk to Sheila, and I presume she's got the best internet possible because she's not. I mean, she's sort of out of. She's not in an urban center, so I don't know. Sometimes in rural parts, internet is by satellite or by. I don't know how it gets to her house. I'll talk to her about it. I'll check. I assume she was on the best internet you can get. There's some places in this country you can't get great internet. It's pretty good though, I think. Damon the Dam is $5. Will you try a Chinese food restaurant in Vancouver for a book promotion? Well, it's funny that you say that because the restaurant we went to in Sherwood Park had 40 Chinese Canadian employees. It really, in a manner of speaking, it was a Chinese restaurant. They had a lot of Chinese food. They also had roast beef and beef ribs and dessert and an ice cream bar and a taco stand. I couldn't eat all. I mean, there's like 100 items. Fresh fruit, lots of salads. So I would call it actually a Chinese restaurant. Listen, I'm here to tell you that if you're a Chinese Canadian, it is absolutely not taken for granted that you support the Chinese Communist Party. In fact, not only if you're from Hong Kong or Taiwan or Tibet or Xinjiang or a Christian or Uyghur, obviously all those folks are going to be hostile to the Communist Party of China. But listen, a lot of people from Communist China who come to Canada come here for the freedom, and even if they have some affection and an affinity for the Communist Party when they come here, just out of nationalism, I think over time they realize the strengths of our system. I really believe that. All right, I think I've caught up on the Super Chats. Am I right on that? One more thing just before I leave the subject of my book launch. I went out to talk to those Chinese consulate protesters, and they were not prepared to debate. They didn't come to debate. They hadn't read the book. They refused to read the book. They really didn't. There's Keane's tweet. The Chinese Communist Party has sent these delightful folks to protest Ezra's book launch. More to come. Yeah, so it wasn't a big number of them. They were outside. I went to talk to them. They didn't want to engage. I went back in, but we had a lawyer there. As you know, we always roll with lawyers and security guards. That's how it is. And someone handed my lawyer some sort of a legal notice. I don't have it on me right here. I should do a show on it. Basically threatening me with an Alberta human rights complaint if I don't change the book, especially the front page. You know what? That might be a move that works in China. I'm sure it does. Now it might be a move that works in Hong Kong. But you've got to be really thinking like a Chinese Communist Party member to think that would work in Canada. I mean, does it work in Canada? Are there authors or editors or reporters in Canada that if you sort of get really mad at them and swear at them, they will literally edit their work to comply with what Beijing's wolf warrior diplomats want? Maybe. I mean, maybe the tactic they tried on me has worked for them elsewhere. I don't think they Googled me, because if they did, they would know that I happen to have a certain stubbornness when it comes to freedom of speech, and that I have in fact been taken before the Alberta Human Rights Commission. Can you call up those old? It's going to be me looking a dozen years younger and thinner, Efren. My Human Rights Commission of Alberta videotapes. I don't know if you can find those. I don't even know where they are, but. More than a dozen years ago now. Oh my God, can it be 14 years ago? I was summoned before no, it was 12 years ago. I was summoned before the Alberta Human Rights Commission because they didn't like a magazine I published at the time called the Western Standard. Yeah, that's the one. I'll be quiet. Here, pump up the sound. Look how thin I was.
If you actually read his complaint, there's only a few lines about the publication of the cartoons. In terms of the number of words written, most of them criticize the fact that I dared defend my right to publish the cartoons. What he's arguing about here, CBC, CTV, on-air statements, is that I dared to argue for my rights. It wasn't even the cartoons. It was that I dared say, because
okay, we can pull out of that video. That looked like a long cut there. That looked like the whole thing, or 35 minutes all put together. That video was me, younger, thinner, more hair, less gray, talking to Shirlene McGovern, who was an investigator for the Alberta Human Rights Commission, and behind me, sort of hiding from the camera, was my lawyer at the time, Tom Ross. And that was me just giving what for to the Alberta Human Rights. You can find, is that on our website somewhere? Given what for to the Alberta Human Rights Commission when they tried to censor my magazine. So yeah, I've been a few rounds to the Alberta Human Rights Commission, and I think the only person who would be more furious with a human rights complaint filed against me than me is the Alberta Human Rights Commission themselves, because they know what that fight would be like. I think that the Alberta Human Rights Commission knows that if it would try to comply, Efron walked in with the letter while we were showing that clip. If the Alberta Human Rights Commission would comply with this demand and investigate me for writing a book that's mean to the Chinese Communist Party, I think they know it would probably mark their doom. My last battle with the Human Rights Commission in Alberta did them tremendous damage politically, caused certain reforms to be made to the commission. It caused the Federal Human Rights Act to be, Section 13, the censorship provision, to be repealed. Imagine if they went after me over this Chinese Communist Party book. With Jason Kenney as premier, I think it could actually spell the abolition of the commission. So in that regard, it would be quite something. Mike Mayer, $20. The amount of child predators and pedophiles being released early or put out on bail due to the virus is appalling. Check us out, People versus Predators, and help put these monsters back behind bars. Edmonton. Mike, I think that was you and your missus that I spoke to at some length in Sherwood Park, wasn't it? And you showed me some of the folks who had been let out. And if I'm recalling, Mike, that was you, and I said, well, Sheila's got to cover these things. She's right up there. Talk to her about it. What you showed me and what you told me was appalling and terrifying. Just for folks, I think that Mike was up there at the book launch, and I basically wandered around from table to table because for social distancing reasons, you know, in a normal book you have a big line up and the author just sits there and signs and everyone's close together. So we had a little bit of a line, but mainly I just went around. And if this is who I think it is, Mike was telling me about under the excuse or the guise of, oh, we got to release them because of the virus, hundreds of sexual offenders have just been dumped back into the street. Just craziness. I think, am I right on that, Mike? You can let me know. Let me check to make sure I am up to date. Spear thrower, 2 pounds. Gates couldn't prove vax testing for the last 32 years. Okay. I don't know exactly what you mean by that. Proud Boys Edmonton, $5. You ever talk to tech support in India? So have we. The West is the best. Proud Boys Edmonton at gmail.com. proudboysyag@gmail.com. It's funny you say that because a number of people have contacted Amazon when they took my book down and they got a lot of responses. I don't know where the customer service people were from, but they gave a lot of different answers for why my book was knocked out. I think they just made it up because they contradict each other. Abu Bakr Al Puff Daddy, I don't think I read this one again. While you were on assignment, Andrew and David were so hilarious. Please keep them as a team. Kudos for your newest reporter, Drea. Can she be on a live chat soon? That's a really good idea. I will be seeing her on Wednesday. I'll try and remember to bring it up. But I agree with you. I think she's had an excellent start. I think she's a great storyteller, which is the essence of our business. She has courage to cover issues that mainstream media shy away from. And she's not afraid to be a bit of a dissenter, you know, to tell the other side of the story. That's what we do. So I'm very proud of her work, and I'm just delighted to have her on the team. So thank you for the great suggestion. Have I covered all the super chats, you guys? Pretty much, yeah? Okay, thanks. So we're using a bit of a different system. Justin's away today, so I got a tag team of Efren and Mike helping me today, so thanks, fellas. Okay, I have in my hand here, did anyone go through this while I was away? Did anyone go through this on the show? No. Okay, so this here is the actual hand-signed letter that I was given. You can see the envelope, and it was handed to my lawyer, Taylor Thiessen. Got a lot of lawyers. And I'll just read some of it. I read some of this on a little live stream I did. Attention, Mr. Ezra Levant. China virus, how Justin Trudeau's pro-communist ideology is putting Canadians in danger. On behalf of my clients, more than 20 Chinese associations in Canada, I am writing this letter of protest in relation to the choice of title of your most recent book. The title is one of a book's first impressions on the readers, and it should be interesting, gripping, and relevant to its elements, and also be mindful of its implications on the communities in the public domain. Unfortunately, we find your book title irrelevant to its core content and rather discriminatory and racist in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I want to let you know that none of them read the book. At least none that I asked said they read the book. So how do they know that the title doesn't relate to the contents of the book? I'm here to tell you it does. And I say that because I not only read the book, I wrote it. World Health Organization also issued best practices for the naming of new human infectious diseases in 2015 already, and advised directly, quote, disease names may not include geographic locations, cities, countries, regions, continents, etc. Well, okay, the World Health Organization is a United Nations creature that is dominated by communist China, and I'm a free person. I could say whatever I want. I chose the title China virus because the virus came from China, but because the real virus I'm talking about in the book is the Communist Party of China, and as you can see by the picture of Justin Trudeau on the cover, I'm just going to read the subtitle again, how Justin Trudeau's pro-communist ideology is putting Canadians in danger. Now, when I was in Alberta, I actually spent a couple days with took a break with a family, Chinese-Canadian friend, who said, Ezra, how would you feel if it was called Jewish virus? Would you be happy about a book like that? All right, good point. I wouldn't. But that implies that the virus is of a particular religion or faith. China is a country. Chinese is a language, Chinese is an ethnicity, but China is a country from which it came. We're not saying Christian virus or Jewish virus. I understand. I can understand how this is, you know, if you were a Chinese Canadian, you'd feel sort of tense perhaps, but this is not Chinese Canadian virus, it is China. Now, I have some friends in the States, Raheem Kassam and his mentor, Steve Bannon, who emphasize CCP virus, Chinese Communist Party virus. And I know that's the preferred nomenclature of the Epoch Times. They don't say China virus or Chinese virus. That's a Trumpism, which is one of the reasons I chose it. They say CCP virus. I hope that catches on, but I think 95% of people don't know what CCP is. They just don't. You've got to be pretty deep into politics to know that CCP is Chinese Communist Party. I get it. They're trying to distinguish, again, between the Communist Party, the Soviet Union, and the ordinary Russian. And I do that at some length in the book. I support Chinese democracy activists. I have a whole section in here defending Chinese democracy activists against abuses by the Chinese Communist Party in Canada. So I can understand. I mean, a friend of mine said, Ezra, how would you feel if it was called the Jewish virus? I wouldn't like a book with that title. But that is not what this is called. It's after the country. And I explain immediately. I mean, listen, I understand why it's spicy. It's a provocative title. But of course it's not racist. China is not a race. It's a country. Back to the letter. In the face of a public health crisis where misconceptions and racial hate crimes are surging, such insensitive and misleading title, again, she didn't even read the book, could create unconscious bias and further fuel discrimination and xenophobia against people of Chinese descent. It is disheartening to see that you and your media network chose this term as the title of a book amid this pandemic, which appears to be nothing but trying to capitalize on media and public attention. It is extremely irresponsible and unprofessional in nature and does not align with Canadians' core value enshrined in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I know she hasn't read the book, but I wonder if she's read the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because Section 2B is freedom of speech. 2A is freedom of thought, belief. So it absolutely does. In fact, her letter threatening me is what doesn't comport with Canadian values. Our clients have made complaints to various media distribution sources who have agreed with our client that the title on this book is racist and provocative. Now, I don't know what it means that they've made complaints with media distribution sources. I don't know what that means. And that they've agreed with the client. I don't get it. We encourage you to replace this title with a more responsible and relevant title, or we will reserve our rights to file a complaint with the Alberta Human Rights Commission and Canadian Human Rights Commission. All right, well, you go ahead and do that, and we'll have another round of a teachable moment about freedom of speech and political censorship. If you don't like a book called China Virus, write your own book, write a critique of this. I think you should start by reading this. None of them there had. Is it a provocative title? Well, sure. I think if you read the book, you'll see there's a lot of terrible facts in there. The facts are what's provocative. This book would make no sense if it weren't true. If the virus came from a country other than China, this book wouldn't make any sense. If Justin Trudeau was not complicit with the Chinese Communist Party, this book wouldn't make any sense. If this book were ineffective and weak, the Chinese government would not be going to such lengths. And this lawyer, Monica Wang, I know she hasn't read the book. I'm not going to change the title. I accept that some Chinese Canadians might find the title a little bit prickly. And I offer, in response to that, my track record of supporting Chinese democracy. I think that this is a fake, an attempt to change the channel by the Communist Party of China. What's interesting to me is is the second page, which has a list of about 20 groups, most of which I've never heard of before, that this lawyer claims to represent. Chinese Overseas Petroleum Association of Canada. What's that? Are those Chinese companies pumping oil in Canada? I don't know. Calgary Jiangsu Shanghai Association. I don't know what that is. Edmonton Hubei Association. That's the province in which Wuhan is. I've actually never heard of any of these groups before. So I'll have to Google them. But it would be quite something if 20 groups had indeed canvassed their members and got instructions to retain a lawyer to send me a threat. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they didn't. To get 20 different groups, some of which are so obscure, I'm sure they don't meet on a regular basis, to truly canvass this issue, when I don't think any of them have read the book, to instruct this lawyer, I don't believe it happened that way. I believe it was the exact opposite. I believe this letter was drafted at the request of the Chinese consulate, and these were just the names of the Beijing compliant groups that said, yeah, put my name. In fact, I don't even think they were consulted. In fact, I think if those groups are in fact even real, they don't know anything about this letter. I tell you all this because I have an actual chapter in my book where I talk about how the Chinese Communist Party still interferes with our democracy here in Canada. One of the examples in my book is there was a church in Vancouver where there was about 100 Chinese democracy activists in the church. So let me say again, these were Chinese and non-Chinese people together who were calling for more freedom and democracy for the Chinese people. So this was a pro-Chinese person group in a church, but the Beijing communist Chinese surrounded the church, terrifying the people inside, and the police had to be sent to actually set free the people inside the church in Canada, not in Xinjiang, not in Beijing. There was I don't think they were armed, but there was a threatening enough mob that held the Chinese democracy activists prisoner, really, until the police came to liberate in Canada. In my book, I talk about how a Tibetan student politician was the subject of, I think, 10,000 signatures by other Chinese Communist Party foreign students in Canada denouncing her just because she was Tibetan. Like insane, racist, when you're anti-Tibetan like that, that's racist. Insane, racist stuff. The Uyghur business, that's racist against Uyghurs. So, yeah, I mean, I think we got some real issues going on here. Sneaky Beaver, $20, Quebec News. TVA journalist getting assaulted by anti-mask protesters in Quebec City yesterday. Okay, the two guys hugged the TVA women live on TV, and they are making a big deal. Meanwhile, you get physically assaulted every day. You know, we really need to pay more attention to news in Quebec. It's our second largest province. It's a quarter of the population in Canada. And I think some of the most interesting news comes out of Quebec. Because they don't have some of our strange English-Canadian political correctness. I just don't know the story you're referring to, though. Mark, $5. Any thoughts on why most religious groups have been persecuted for practicing compliantly, while groups like Hutterites seem exempt from health orders? Well, it's funny you say that. Of course, Hutterites came to North America precisely because they were persecuted in Europe. And I think there's some anti-Hutterite animus out there. And we recently saw that some animal rights extremists targeted the Hutterite farms for home invasion style robberies because they knew the Hutterites wouldn't fight back, unlike a traditional Canadian farm. Let me catch up. We got a lot of comments here. Jim Rat, $2. Agreed. David and Andrew banter is great. All right. Well, let's have more of those guys. Cindy McSee, $10. Keep up the great work, Ezra and Rebel Team. Do my best to try to support. I read the book and did a review. Well, thank you very much. There's so many reviews. I love the reviews that say verified purchase. But there's so many one-star reviews by people who clearly didn't read the book. Maybe the people in this letter. Damon the Diamonds, $5. Do you think the protesters were threatened by the CCP to force them to protest? Sheila had that theory. And I think I mentioned before that I have a friend named Joe Wong, who's the president of NTD TV, which is a pro-democracy, pro-Falun Gong, Chinese ethnicity, Chinese language TV station here in Canada. And he told me that he got a call from his brother back in China in the hospital. And his brother said, oh, there's someone here you got to talk to. And his brother handed the phone to the Chinese secret police. And the Chinese secret police said to Joe in Canada, you better stop your democracy activism or your brother's going to get in trouble. Now, Joe did not stop, but that's the kind of threats when you have like a hostage back home. By the way, that's how the Soviet Union did it. They very rarely let people travel outside the Soviet Union without having family as hostages back home. Applebacker, Al Buff Daddy, $5. Hey Ezra, any update on your battle with Elections Canada? No, I have no update from them. I'm sure that they took advantage of the pandemic just to take a very long, very well-paid vacation. Last I heard from them was months ago, probably March, maybe February, when they said, send us any documents. Can you call up the top secret document that Mike made? Mike's helping out with Efron here. Mike, I have to say that, I mean, Mike does so many of our our graphics, but one of the funniest, bestest visual images we've ever produced here at Rebel News was when Elections Canada demanded to see our plan, our editorial plan, our strategy document for my book. Now I got to tell you, we're not that organized. So this is what we sent. Mike did that. Let me read my tweet. Trudeau's elections police have been demanding my private editorial notes and business plan for my best-selling book, The Libranos. They've now demanded my records 4 times. And yesterday said my time's up. So here's what I sent them. We really did send this, people. We had a manila envelope. I swear we really did put the word confidential on the cover. We really, really did. And then look, Mike, you know, I still laugh when I see this. I still laugh, Mike. So this is our top secret business plan. And I love how top secret is spelled. I love the backwards K. And that's me on the left. You can tell because I'm so thin. And so that's me. And I'm saying, ha ha. And then, so this is the business plan, you must understand. Lawn signs, buy the book, equals money. And there's Trudeau, wah, wah, wah. I like weed, his shirt says. And look at the grass, even the grass and the sun. I swear to God, we sent this to the investigators at Elections Canada when they demanded our records. And again, and I wasn't going to send them a thing. And then they demanded one last time. They said, you must send it in today. And then I called up my lawyer and I said, you know what, Aaron, buy me one more day. I said, tell them you'll get the dog. I just need one more day. So our lawyer called and said, Ezra will be sending over dog. We need one more day. Because we had to get this just perfect. And so the next day we sent this to the government. And I'm still laughing. It's almost 6 months later. I'm still laughing. In fact, I think we sold some posters or some T-shirts to that effect. I think I might have even sent some T-shirts to the two cops. I can't remember if we sent them. Maybe I just asked them their shirt sizes. Okay. Maybe Jovanovich, $2, Pentagon, alien vehicles. You hear it? Any thoughts? I saw some news about to that effect. I didn't read past the headline. I'm sorry. Travis Coulson, $7. I wish Hugh Hefner was still around. He always had an interesting point of view on important matters. Do you mean Hugh Hefner from Playboy magazine? You know, I never really followed him as a personality. He always struck me as sort of gross. But I think he fancied himself as a free speechnik. I know that, who is the paraplegic pornographer Larry Flint, thanks, yeah. Larry Flint, who published, I think it was Hustler magazine, he was a free speech advocate because, of course, he published pornography that was shocking in its day. Now, these days, we're so numb to it and it's ubiquitous because of the internet. But in his day, Larry Flint, the pornographer, was a free speech advocate because he was where the battle front line was on free speech. That was obscenity law, that was attacks on cultural norms. That was the left. I think it's fair to say that those were men of the left. I don't think where are the men on the left when it comes to free speech? I don't know if you could even call pornographers leftist, but where are they on free speech? I really don't see. In fact, we had a staff meeting this morning, and I asked a lawyer, I said, how many free speech cases do we have? And he said we have 13 categories. Like one of those categories, Fight the Fines, we got 11 cases. So we have more than 20 civil liberty litigations going on right now. Here's the Fight the Fines cases. So many cases. Can you go to, scroll down a little bit, the New Brunswick case, the first New Brunswick case. Let's find it there. Yeah, that's the one there. That's the one. I just want to see how many views that has. Just click on this, show me the views. So this was the case of the New Brunswick guy. Hey, pump up the volume a little bit. Let people listen for a sec, and then we'll get back to the view count.
Back, you're trespassing. If you come back, you will not be trespassing.
Does that include every Tim Hortons in town?
No, that's just one here in Hampton.
Just this one.
Just this one. So if you come back, you're trespassing. There's your ticket. Leave the parking lot now, sir. We'll sign another one. Next one goes up to $1,000.
Really?
Yes. You can get up to $10,000.
How many have you given out today?
You're the first.
Well, I feel so good about
You're lucky.
that.
You're the first. You're the first asshole I've had.
Today I want to introduce you to Walter Matheson from New Brunswick. He received a nearly $300 ticket. His crime? Sitting alone in his car in a Tim Hortons parking lot while he finished his muffin and coffee before carrying on his day. for failure to comply with the direction of emergency measures. But Walter is obviously a quick thinker because he did something many journalists wouldn't think to do, let alone normal people just minding their own business, trying to wash down a muffin with a double-double in a parking lot completely alone in one's own car. Walter started recording the audio on his phone. So while we don't have a video of what happened to Walter, we do have the audio of his interaction with the police officer. There's a lot of dead air as Walter politely waits for the cop to ticket him, so we just cut that out for brevity. But you can hear for yourself. Walter isn't rude. He actually jokes with the cop, and the cop goes from jovial to angry nearly immediately with Walter the moment Walter wanted just a little bit of clarity from him. Just listen.
Not too bad.
Good, good. Tim Hortons has asked me to move people from the parking lot here.
Really?
Okay? I know you're by yourself and all that, but what it does is it's letting the teens see what happens, and then they all start hanging out here later on.
No, I don't
and Tim
believe
Hortons,
that.
pardon me?
I don't believe that.
You don't believe the teens will do that?
That's their opinion.
No, that's true, but they have asked, and it is up to them to do it.
This country is still...
Well, I'm sure you've seen that video. It was a great video. A guy just sitting in his car, finishing his muffin and coffee. You ever do that? You ever go to a drive-through, and instead of driving, you got all this stuff, and it's hot and it's fresh, and you just park in the parking lot for a second just to eat it. Maybe you throw out your wrappers and stuff in the garbage in the parking lot. It's totally normal. The guy gets a $292 fine for doing that. He's by himself in the car, and the cop's excuse was a laugh. The cop called him an asshole for no reason at all, and thankfully, Walter Matheson, the guy there, he recorded the whole thing on his phone. Can I see the view cam? That's really what I wanted to see, because I think that's our most popular Fight the Fines video. I want to see how many times, can you show me how many times that YouTube vid has been watched? What's the stat underneath there? I can't quite see that first number. It's cut off on my 275,000. Now, thanks. Now, that's a lot of views. That is a lot of views. And in Hampton, New Brunswick, I'm guessing the town of Hampton has less than 10,000 people. Let me just, I'm just going to check. So I think, 4,200 people, 4,300 people live in Hampton. So obviously a lot more, I mean, this is probably the #1 video in New Brunswick. Obviously it's been watched around the world, including here in Toronto, etc. But that's a lot of views for a story coming out of Hampton. So that cop who embarrassed himself by swearing at Walter hired a lawyer to threaten us. And Sheila, can you call up that one? So they had so the cop should just leave well enough alone and say, all right, I lost my temper, lesson learned, I'm not going to swear at people. And by the way, I happen to support body cams on cops, because most of the time it's someone lying about the cop. Oh, he did oh, he was racist, oh, he shoved me. I think body cams are the cop's best friend. But every once in a while it shows that the cop was fibbing or being badly behaved, and good for Walter for filming things. So anyways, this cop was so embarrassed. And by the way, Sheila didn't even mention the cop's name. It was just on the ticket and whatnot. And we had the cop's voice. So this cop hires a lawyer demanding that we give the audio recording to the RCMP. What? So is this a private project, or are you doing this on behalf of the RCMP, or do you do this all the time to journalists? I mean, a 4,300 person town, it's sort of a small town. I could imagine a bad cop or a rough cop or a mean cop could probably get away with a lot of things in a town where it's like a one cop town, but that don't work on us, because we sort of know our rights and we like to fight. Can you show me the view count on the second vid when we get this threat letter? Oh, look at that, almost 500,000. Play a minute of this. Play a minute of this. Yeah, skip this part.
I have an incredible update to bring you about the case of Walter Matheson. He's our Fight the Fines case from Hampton, New Brunswick, who was ticketed by police in a Tim Hortons parking lot while he ate his muffin and finished his coffee completely alone in his car. He was ticketed for failure to comply with emergency measures. The thing is, Walter did try to comply, but the police officer then stopped him and ticketed him nearly $300 after Walter said, "This is still a free country."
This country is still a free country.
Okay, if you don't move, I'm going to give you a $292 ticket.
Is that right?
Yes.
For doing what?
For not moving in compliance to what I'm saying.
And the cop involved, well, he got particularly abusive, even swearing at Walter at one point.
Here's your ticket. Leave the parking lot now, sir. We'll sign another one. Next one goes up to $1,000.
Really?
Yes. You can get up to $10,000.
How many have you given
move.
out today?
You're the first.
Well, I feel so good about
You're lucky. You're the first. You're the first asshole I've had.
However, Walter brilliantly recorded the interaction and then he gave it to us. Now, I hate being part of this story. I really do. But today, I'm part of the story because we've now received a legal threat letter on behalf of the cop who ticketed Walter. I want to read this letter together with you, and I'll stop as I'm reading to point things that I notice out to you, if that's okay, because I am almost 100% certain this lawyer did not watch the video or read the accompanying website article before firing off this bullying and threatening letter to us at Rebel News. Okay, here it goes. Dear Sir or Madam, regarding Constable John Thompson and article, aggressive bullying by the police. Now, I just want to point out that she got the address wrong. She spelled Eglinton wrong. It's Eglinton, not Ellington. Not off to a great start. Please be advised we represent Constable Thompson respect to the above cited matter. We understand one of your reporters named Sheila Gunn Reid published an article, aggressive bullying by police. The grammar here, it's not great for a legal letter. There are extra commas just...
Sheila does a great job going through it. She's making fun of the letter and the lawyer who clearly didn't watch the video. But what was the view count on that, Mike? Was that 445,000 or something like that? Almost 500,000. So you had more than 250,000 for the first one, right? And you have almost 500,000 for the second one. My math tells me you're looking at 750,000 views. I think that's the biggest story out of New Brunswick. Now, I don't want to tell tales out of school, but I called up Walter Matheson, the good egg. I just say, hey, how you doing? Is everything okay? They're not picking on you or anything. And he told me he hadn't had any more hassles. I wanted to check, because you get an angry cop, that could spell trouble. You could see he's angry enough he's hiring a lawyer, and that didn't work, so maybe he's going to do something dumb. I talked to Walter. He said he was fine. I should check up on him again. I said to him, if this case goes forward, could you imagine? I said, we'll cover it like, like the declaration of war or like an election night or something. We will bring our whole Rebel team to Little Hampton, New Brunswick. We'll take up the whole hotel in town, and we will cover his trial for a $292 ticket. We'll cover it morning, noon, and night. We'll do streeters. We'll do analysis. We'll have a live stream. I have never been to Hampton, New Brunswick. I've been to Fredericton and St. John. I've never been to Hampton. Frankly, I'm sorry, I couldn't find it on a map. No disrespect. I just don't know my geography of small towns in New Brunswick. But I'm sure it's got some of the one thing you got to say about New Brunswick, I think they can make the case they're the friendliest people in Canada. I know Newfoundlanders will give them a run for their money, and Albertans have a kind of friendliness to them also, but it's like a different, hey, like it's hey friendliness, right? And Newfoundland, I think New Brunswick's the friendliest province. I would love to go there, spend 2 days. I bet there's great restaurants. You know, when I went to Newfoundland a while back, I was closer to Rick Mercer and Rex Murphy than I am now. In fact, I sort of fallen out of touch with both of them. I went on a cod, a fish sticks, like not fish sticks, just like a fried cod, a tasting excursion around the country, around the province. I probably went to 20 or 30 places trying cod, and I would tell them where I was and give them a review and they would give me recommendations of where to go. And I don't know why I told you that, but like I thought I'm going to do a food tour of Newfoundland, and I'm going to talk to my 2 Newfoundland buddies in Toronto for guidance. And it was a wonderful time. That's about 10 years ago now. I bet New Brunswick's the same way. So let me tell you, if that trial goes ahead with Walter Matheson, we will be there and we will cover it big time. And I look forward to meeting Walter Matheson in person. And we're going to fight for freedom, because that is what we do. We fight for freedom against Justin Trudeau. We fight for freedom against any premier or mayor. You don't think I'm going to fight for freedom against some Human Rights Commission or the Communist Chinese consulate? If you don't think we're going to do that, you don't get it. And here's the crazy point. They roughed up, legally speaking, Walter Matheson. We do a video, gets 250,000 views. They think, oh, they're going to double down. Don't do that. It's going to get worse for you, mate. It's going to get worse. 500,000 views. Now, he learned his lesson, that cop. He didn't come back again. Don't mess with us when it comes to freedom. All right, I want to just check how we're doing for the Super Chats. Proud Boys Edmonton, $5 protecting people like Ezra's right to speak freely since 2016. ProudBoysYag@gmail.com. Appreciate all the help. Thank you. Lesbian Towel, $5. Is the plight of Palestinians comparable to the plight of Uyghurs? If not, why not? Well, that's a great. You're asking great questions. There is not a 1 million person concentration camp in Israel. Palestinians and all Muslims are not force-fed pork as they are in China. They're not in prisons doing forced labor. They're not undergoing re-education. The Palestinian Authority controls local administration of government, schools, hospitals. My favorite factoid that I've learned there is that there's a little fence, it's a security fence, a barrier between Arab towns, Palestinian towns, and Jewish towns, and the root of this barrier, this fence, is constantly being litigated. I think the litigation is done. Every single lawsuit by Palestinians against this fence was to have the fence moved so they're on the Israeli side, under Israeli jurisdiction, not under Palestinian jurisdiction. I think that says a lot, doesn't it? Damon the Damits, $5. I speak easy coast. That's perfect English. Canada's Cockney. You know, I love it out there. Last time I was out there was in Halifax for the Conservative Party's convention. And I don't want Walter to go on trial. I want the Crown to drop the case against Walter in Hampton. But boy, they got a stubborn cop on that one, don't they? Part of me, I mean, wouldn't that be fun? I think we should take the whole team out there. Would you go, Efren? Would you go out there? Margaret, I mean, you're from Halifax? Dartmouth? Halifax? Just around there. Mike, have you ever been out there? It's so friendly. I think if Walter was on trial, I say we get rent a big RV, like not fly. I mean, flying, yeah, but let's rent a big old camper and let's have a road trip. Let's have a road trip to Hampton, New Brunswick, have fun on the way, barbecues along the way, stopping, Denny's, IHOP, whatever. Go to Hampton, camp out. It's going to be great. Or they can drop the charges. Either way, I win. Am I right? On the one hand, freedom wins for Walter. The other hand, we got a great trip to Hampton, and we cover the trial of the century in Hampton, New Brunswick. Folks, it's 1:03. I was a little rambly today, I'll be honest. I'm out of practice. I haven't been in this chair in 10 days. So thank you for your patience. It sounds like the folks who were in this chair were a big hit. So I'm going to sign off now. Thanks for all the Super Chat folks. And hopefully I'll see some of you tonight at my 8 p.m. show. I see there's one more Super Chat from Jacques Contant, $5. Civil disobedience is when good citizens ignore stupid laws, tailor-made for rebels. Yeah, I mean, listen, I want to be within the law. I want to comply with the law. I want to use the law. But I do believe, and we said this at our staff meeting this morning, I do believe the Rebel News Network is doing more civil liberties work in Canada than any public interest law firm, full stop. All right, folks, until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.